So I'm in the choir, obviously. I would like to see all men be feminists and understand that there's a lot of benefit for them to come to the table. And when I heard you start talking about like the stats, especially like the suicide and the harm that comes to men and how, there is an opportunity to shift that culture if we all shift our mindsets and if men shift their mindsets. But I can't help but feel like there's an element there where we're asking men to be vulnerable, to say, like, I am at risk of that, or I know that those things are bad and they happen to me. I'm wondering if there's resistance there because to me, your pitch rings true, but I'm in the choir. Is there still a reluctance? And like, what does that look like? And, how can men, maybe shift their perspective to embrace it more? Because my experience generally is asking people to be vulnerable is very challenging.
Just because I can see their faces, and I appreciate y'all being on camera, but I see Ken, Greg, and Thomas here. And if we could just do like a thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down activity. Have any of you as men, and then we see Robert Sinclair on here as well too, as men, have any of you lost a man in your life to suicide? Okay, 50% of the guys on the thing here. Have any of you experienced homophobic comments like "that's so gay," "you're so gay," those types of things based on how you performed your masculinity? 100%. Have any of you been like feminized, like you throw like a girl, or don't be such a B word, because of how you performed or showed up in a men's space? No, like 75% there, right?
Mhm.
Have any of you felt like masculinity in like sports or in work or those types of things was a culture of competition and probably tipping over into domination? 100%, right? And so thank you for indulging me in that activity. Guys know this stuff, right? And in our individual conversations, we can have that, but there's a lack of male leadership in having these conversations in the spaces they need to happen. And like you said, you're part of the choir, I'm preaching to the choir. How are we getting into those spaces where these conversations aren't happening? The locker room, the boardroom, the workshop, right? And who's leading in those spaces? Because the difficulty is that, a lot of guys, I know we're going to get to this in a little bit, so I don't want to jump too much ahead, but the Hockey Canada stuff right now, and I'm thinking about this from the conversation I had this morning. We know the consequences in male cultures and in male groups of not going along with the dominant narrative in that sense, right? And so in that moment, we're making a trade-off of like, I want to belong to this group, this cohort, and so I'm going to bite my tongue. I'm going to hold my mouth, right? Like in a locker room, a lot of guys know that the thing that is happening is not good, but they don't have the culture or the wherewithal to stand up and say, I disagree with this. And I'm kind of maybe like prattling on a little bit here, but I hope that we take away from the little exercise that I did there that guys know these things. They need to be invited, and I'd say even probably challenged to talk about it amongst ourselves, because these aren't women's issues, these are men's issues. That's where the stakeholder piece is.